Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. Today's video we are going to be doing some Kirkland fall dupes. I was browsing the Kirkland's website looking at what kind of stuff they had for fall, and I found a few things that I thought I think we can make similar things to this on our own. So these are really fun. I love how they came out. They were a lot of fun to make. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe before you leave so you don't miss out on my future videos. And let's get into the first DIY. This first one, we are duping this orange wood pumpkin statue, and I've got the wood cut out from Dollar Tree, some little wood blocks from Dollar Tree, and one of these leaf cutouts. I do have the leaf cutout from last year, but I think they have it again this year. We're going to start with taking the lightweight spackling. This is also from Dollar Tree, and just filling in that hole. And I just keep a finger on the other side so that it doesn't get pushed all the way through. And then we're going to take these little wooden blocks, and we're going to use some wood glue to glue them together. We're just doing 3 sets of 2. You'll see what we use those for later on. I end up needing some more things, but that's just to make a little stand for our pumpkin. So I start by pulling off the bow, and I used my hairdryer to heat up some of that glue to get that off. And we're also going to remove the hanger. And I do realize in a minute that I need to fill that hole as well. So I'm going in and painting the whole thing with Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin. I really like this color orange. It's like, I don't know, it's a good orange. It's not bright, but it's not super muted. Anyways, we're going to cover the whole thing with this. I think I probably did, well, I did one main coat, and then we're going to paint part of it again. You'll see in just a minute. I do also decide to paint the back of this. You don't have to do that, but I just wanted to make sure it looked finished from behind if anyone were to see that. So, and here I am filling in that hole. So once we gave the back of the pumpkin a nice coat and it was dry, I flipped it back over, and I'm painting the, I guess you could say, the lower level of this pumpkin again with the orange color, the pumpkin color, just to make sure that had a really good coverage. And then we're going to do the upper levels a little bit differently. I also wanted to paint the blocks in the back that are going to be used to hold it up with that orange paint as well, just so that it blends in. You could definitely make a stand differently than what I do, but I will show you how I put that all together. So now I'm just taking some white acrylic paint and a little bit of that pumpkin and mixing it together just to get like a very light orange, and I wanted that to have some white in there. And we're going to give these upper layers a coat or two of this combo. And of course the paint color does change as it dries, so you'll see how that ends up looking. And I was just kind of looking at the picture that I showed you in the beginning along the way so that I could really try to get the right look. I do try to keep my brush strokes in the shape of the pumpkin just because I think that helps with the shape of the pumpkin. And now I'm going in with a white stencil brush and a tiny bit of that white paint by itself, and just kind of going along the edges of those curved pieces. And I am doing it while the other paint was still a little bit wet to make sure it got blended in really good. And then I'm just taking some black acrylic paint. Once again, you could do all of this with chalk paint if you wanted, but I didn't think it mattered for these things, so I went in with acrylic paint and painted the stem, and then also did some white dry brushing over the top of it to imitate the picture. And I know for some reason it seems a little bit blurry. You can't really see the color greens here, but it really doesn't matter. I just kind of mixed ones that I have. I know one was a Kelly green, and then one was maybe like more of a mossy green. And I just kind of mixed it together. I had a couple little paint chunks from the top of the bottle that got in there. I just kind of mixed it until I got something that I thought looked good. Once again, matching the picture, and I gave this a couple of coats. I did also, again, paint the back on this. I think, no, honestly, I don't remember. I think I did. I think I just did one coat on the back. Then once that was dry, I am once again taking the white paint with a stencil brush, and we're just dry brushing mainly along the edges from the outside in, and then I do a few on the inside. And we're going to try to give this leaf a little bit of dimension. I'm taking a really small paintbrush, and what I did was I dipped it in white, then that green, and just to kind of mix it together to draw in a couple little like veins for the leaf, and I really like how this came out. I was kind of impressed with myself. Now the dupe has 2 leaves on it, but my leaves are a lot bigger, so I'm only using 1. And I am using wood glue. Hot glue would work just fine. Probably would have been an easier option because it was kind of hard. I had to put stuff on this to weight it down while it dried, but whatever. And then I misplaced it, so I had to wipe some glue off. But I was going to say some of the Dollar Tree signs have like metal leaves on them that you could, if you have those on hand, take those off and paint them for this as well, and those would be a little bit smaller. But I liked how the one looked with, even though it was a little bit bigger, I really liked how that came out overall. And then we're just making a little stand. So my idea was to just glue these on each of the bottom curves. Sorry, there's my head in the way. And it wasn't quite enough. It didn't fully hold it up. It just was kind of, I don't know, it barely stayed up. So what I decided to do was take some Jenga blocks and just hot glue those in the back. What I ended up doing was, well, you're going to see I do end up putting 8 blocks on. That way it went out a little bit more, but also a little bit heavier was kind of my thought, like it needed more weight in the back. So you can mess around with it. And then I just painted those with pumpkins so that it wouldn't stand out. I have also in the past taken the back of picture frames that I have used for DIYs where I just use the frame and I've got that little stand piece, and I've hot glued that on the back of signs before and that works great, so that might be another option for you. But this ultimately did work, and you can't really see it unless you're all the way onto the side, so this worked out really well. And here it is all finished. I was really pleased with how it came out, and I thought it looked pretty much like the original, so I was pleased. For this next one, we're going to be making this banner from Kirkland's. And I am using these wood cutouts from Dollar Tree. Now, the ones on the right I had from last year, and when I went back to get more, the pumpkins on the left looked different. So I'm wondering if these ones were supposed to be apples, but the 3 little bumps in the bottom look like a lot of other pumpkin stuff. So I don't know. I decided to use 3 of these for these pumpkins, and then I'm using the other ones for the rest, just because I felt like these would be easier, the shape of these would be easier to get the scrapbook paper to fit it. So, I don't know. They look like pumpkins to me. So I'm just Mod Podging them down on this buffalo check paper that I had purchased probably from Hobby Lobby. As you can see, I'd already used some of it. And I'm just kind of creasing along the edges, and then we're going to Mod Podge the top and then let it dry. Now, the banner from Kirkland's was made with fabric, so they were a little bit more poofy and everything, but I thought this would be a pretty close replica, and I had the wood pieces. I did have to go there get a second pack, like I said, because I realized I didn't have enough left over from last year. But yeah, so I was excited about this, and I had the paper and everything. It was just meant to be. So for the other 4, and of course you could make this bigger if you wanted using more pieces, but I did the exact same number they had. I'm going to just fill in the holes on these ones. I didn't worry about on the other ones because I was putting the paper over it, but these ones I'm using that little, now I don't remember what it's called. It's not wood filler, but it's the other stuff. You could use either one of those. Fill in the holes, let it dry, and then just give it a quick sand to smooth it out. And then once my buffalo check ones were all dried, I'm also using a sanding block, and you're just going to sand away and it just tears off. You could also cut it with like an X-Acto knife if you wanted. I did have to get a piece of sandpaper around the stem because I just needed something smaller to get in there. But this works really well for me, but you could certainly either try to cut it out exactly and just Mod Podge it on that way, or you could use a knife, X-Acto knife to cut it off, a little blade, whatever you want. But I like the sanding block. Now we're going to paint 2 of these pumpkins in orange. I'm once again using Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin, and then I'm doing the other 2 with white paint, and I just used an acrylic white paint. I think it was called Snow White by Apple Barrel, I think. And I gave those 2 coats. It didn't need necessarily 2 full coats, but a little bit of the wood was peeking through, and I wasn't really going for that on this particular one, so I did 2 coats. Now I'm painting stems on all of these, and I am just using, I think I used acrylic paint in the color Burnt Umber from Apple Barrel, and I'm just kind of eyeballing that, and I did that on all of them, including the buffalo check ones, because that's what it looked like to me on the dupe that I was trying to make. Now I had cut off some twine. I did figure out about how big I wanted this, and then I'm burning it with my little lighter to get off all of the fuzzies. I measured out about how much space I wanted in between each pumpkin. but you can do this however you want. And then I like to just tie little loops at the end of each of my garlands for hanging it up, which sometimes is how I use it, but at least it's there even if I don't end up doing it that way. And I put a little dab of glue just to hold the tie in to make sure it wouldn't come undone. And I just put the piece in half and hot glued the middle pumpkin to the back and burnt my finger, but that's okay. And then after that, I flipped them over and I just used a ruler to keep them all even on the bottom, and then measured. I did about an inch in between each pumpkin, but once again, you know, make it bigger, make them further spaced out, whatever you want to do. And I just hot glued those on as well. And this is the completed garland. This is probably not where I'm going to end up using it, although it looks really cute here. But I think I'm going to be using it somewhere else when the time comes. Not quite time yet, but it's getting close. For this next one, I saw these mini chalk paint pumpkins on the Kirkland website, and I was like, well, that's really easy. So I am taking apart these pumpkins. I actually had these in my stash from last year or maybe the year before. I don't know. But they are, I believe, these are ones that I picked up from Walmart. And Walmart's pumpkins are usually 97 or 98 cents, something like that. But you could also use ceramic pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, or these types of pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. But I basically went through what I already had and picked out ones that I didn't necessarily still want to use, and that's how I decided which ones I was painting. So do it however you want to do it, but I am painting this one in the color Crimson by Waverly in the chalk paint, and I just did one half, held onto it, dried it, flipped it over, etc. And I did 2 coats on each of these. This one I'm using the color Fern, and then I did one in the color Pumpkin. I did not do a yellow pumpkin like in the picture because it just wouldn't flow with how I decorate. So that's why I left that out. But you could either, I was going to just mix it with some yellow acrylic paint because I don't have the chalk paint. But they do have a Waverly chalk paint in the color, I think it's called Maize. And that would be like the perfect yellow. So if you really wanted to completely do this whole set, you could certainly find the bright colors that way. But I just omitted it because, like I said, it just wasn't going to make sense with my decor. Also, if you picked up some of those ceramic pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, there are a few of them that already have a gold stem, which is what is shown in the picture that I showed you from the ones from Kirkland's. So that would make your job really easy. You could just tape off the stem. But I also didn't want to paint my stem gold because, once again, I have some that have a gold stem, but I didn't want more of them because it just isn't fully in my, in my decor. But I did have this gold metallic paint that I was going to use originally to paint these, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to do that. So I just took more of that burnt umber paint and just gave them a quick little coat because there was some paint missing on these stems. And then once that dried, we just put a little tiny dab of hot glue and shoved those back in there. This is not a full replica, but either way, even if you did all 4, this would still be about $10 cheaper than the Kirkland ones. So very easy to give a try, and yeah, I'm really pleased with these. If you enjoyed these Kirkland dupes, or if you enjoy fall DIYs or just DIYs in general, Dollar Tree DIYs, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new so you don't miss out on my future videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys!